it's the longest journey you'll ever take, those 18 inches from your head to your heart.
Yeah.
But when you can connect them, then you're in alignment. And that's where I started working and focusing on being in alignment and teaching others how to be in alignment.
Welcome back to the Sacred Soul Podcast. I'm super excited for today's guest, Michael Dash. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Vanessa. I'm excited.
Yes, and you're one of the beautiful, amazing, incredible souls that I've been able to connect with here in Tulum, because I've been living in Tulum, Mexico for this year mostly. And it's such a vortex. It's amazing the amount of, community and aligned souls that are here. So it's just been a pleasure to run into you recently and to hang out.
Yeah, you as well. I mean, we live like a block from each other, I think, and we're always out walking our dogs. And then where do we find each other? In the spa, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. So I love to ask people a philosophical question. I know you're a Scorpio just like me, so you might appreciate this and really explore this question. Who are you and who are you not?
Am I and who am I not? So I am an empowered, transformed, elevated human who is passionate about supporting my former self and anybody who walks in that shadow.
Mm.
My former self being the addicted entrepreneur who was chasing every dollar, every award, at one point, every woman, and chasing, but didn't actually know what he was chasing for. That's who I am, and that's who I focus on connecting with and healing with. Who am I not? I am not a quitter.
I love that. That is so powerful. That is so powerful. And so, can you tell us more about your journey? I know you as a leader, you lead retreats, you have a men's group, you're doing all this amazing stuff, you have an incredible book out. But who was Michael like leading up to this transformative life that you're in now and how you transform other people's lives? Who was Michael Dash prior to that? What were some of your challenges? And you mentioned a few already, but you can tell us more. What was that like?
Yeah, I grew up the son of an entrepreneur. So I was always inspired to be my own boss and build my own business. And that's what I did. It was in the staffing and recruiting industry. I was born in New Jersey, and I moved away after college and went to Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, and opened up a staffing and recruiting business. And through that, I was really only focused on building bigger, bigger, bigger. I had this vision in my mind. I wanted to build the company to $20 million and then get bought by one of the large staffing companies. And I had a business partner. And throughout that time, I was not focused so much on people and their feelings, my employees and their emotions. I was focused on and their mental health, because I wasn't focused on my mental health. I was focused on bringing every single dollar in the door that I possibly could that would get us ahead of the competition to reach me further towards my goal. Where that landed me was in court at a 6-year lawsuit with my ex-business partner, who I had bought out after 5 years. And we ended up in a dispute over the contract that we signed and the non-compete, which she had agreed to. Anyway, without getting into all the specifics, because I take ownership of all my involvement in it, it was a very ugly place. I was also addicted to Adderall at the time, GHB, marijuana. And that was after I had been clean from gambling, which was my first addiction. I had a 20-year addiction. And cocaine, I had a 10-year addiction to cocaine. I was a weekend warrior. So I was able to just do it on the weekends and be really successful at my job during the week. I never sacrificed my focus on my job with any of these addictions. They actually fed me to perform higher in my job. So I had money to fund all the addictions that I had.
Mm.
So that's who I was leading up to this whole transformation and everything. I think in being in a lawsuit for 6 years with somebody at the time that you just hate because you don't have a lot of love in you when you're going through something like this. I had a lot of hate in me. She hated me, I hated her. And I don't think either of us had an elevated level of consciousness at the
Mm.
time. Um, so I learned some valuable lessons as I had friends who were divorced in a shorter period, married and divorced in a shorter period of time than my lawsuit. um, yeah, it was a painful experience, and I wouldn't. I don't want to say I wouldn't change it because I actually would. I know a lot of people say that I wouldn't change it for the world. No, I would change it. I would change it.
Thank you for your honesty.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my little giggle is just, I mean, sometimes this is a side note. Sometimes we just get in the habit of saying these default statements in the conscious community or in the personal development space. And I just wonder if people really mean it. And that's one of them, but we won't go down that road. So what I want to clarify is, and get some more context from you is, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that lawsuit part of your soul awakening and your transitional phase?
Yeah, I mean, the lawsuit was over $350,000. It's a lot of money, but I spent $1 million on it over 6 years. I spent $1 million on a $350,000 dispute.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yes, the financial part really, really hurt because it was basically all I had at the time. And I had to sell my houses to pay it off and everything. But it wasn't the biggest thing I lost. The biggest thing I lost was the time because you cannot replicate time. And if you can, then I'll pay you a lot of money to show me how. But you can replace the money. So the awakening that I had was 5 years into the 6 year lawsuit. I went to a retreat in Bali and it changed my life. I heard two people talking about following your intuitive guide, even if it logically doesn't make sense, putting logic aside and just following the intuition that we all have. Some people call it connection to God or spirit. Some people call it their gut. Some people call it their intuitive guide. And I heard these two people talking about it, and I decided to take their course at the time, which was Flow Consciousness Institute. Check it out online. It's amazing. And it was like a 10-week course where we went through all our limiting beliefs. We used tapping and EMDR, if you're familiar with these practices. And we cleared all my limiting beliefs and then implanted all new positive beliefs using these two technologies. And slowly over time, things started to shift. And a year late, not less than a year later, after I went to trial, and after the jury actually ruled partially in my favor, my ex-business partner at the time was threatening to appeal it, which would have been another year to 2 years. And I just told her, like, I'll give you whatever you want. I don't want to go through this anymore. Like, I don't want to go through it. I want my life back. I never would have been able to do that if I hadn't gone through that program. And so she said she wanted the 350 that I, agreed to pay her 6 years prior before the violation of the agreement. So I just said, fine, take it here. And by doing that, I got my life back.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of sensing that was like a form of surrender, right? Like just accepting what the situation was and is so that you could get your time back.
100%, 100%. And, the meaning of, I was doing so well and making, like, I was making really good money that I didn't have a true relationship with it.
Hmm.
Right. I didn't really have a true relationship with money. I didn't respect it
Mm-hmm.
because it was easy. It was
Yeah.
coming in and it was going out. I have a much different relationship with money now. I respect it a lot more, and it definitely made me realize that all the money in the world is not going to fulfill internally what we have a duty to fulfill ourselves. Nobody's going to fulfill that except us and our connection to God and our connection to other humans and our evolution and our ability and dedication to be one iota better today than we were yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And so what started to take place after the lawsuit, after the Bali trip? What started to emerge for you? What new path?
So I decided to write a book. So I became an author after that. I left Utah. I had 4 houses at the time. I chose to sell them so I could pay off this lawsuit. So I sold everything and I went to LA and I wrote my book, Chasing the High, which was basically my story about an entrepreneur's mindset, which was my mindset, through addiction, through lawsuits, and just kind of like my journey to the edge. And writing that book and opening up my story to just the world was really a release and allowed me to kind of transition into starting to support other people who had
Mm.
similar journeys.
Yeah, powerful, powerful. And what is one of the most significant pieces of wisdom in that book?
Wow. There's a lot of wisdom in that book. Let me take a deep breath and see. One of the most significant pieces. I think it's what I just said is that, like, you can't replace time. You can't replace time. You can replace money. You can't replace time. If you go broke, whoever's listening to this, if somebody ever goes broke, it's a blessing. You could start fresh. You could do anything you want. All right. If you lose a lot of money in a deal, whatever it is, we get to determine like how we react to it.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I learned. Right. We can react or we can respond. We get to decide. And when I react, it's usually led by emotion and lack of clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And when I respond, it's usually led from thought-provoking and heart-centered emotion. Heart-centered, what am I looking for here? Heart-centered and thought. So when the mind and the heart are connected, that's when I'm able to respond. And they say that it's the longest journey you'll ever take, those 18 inches from your head to your heart.
Yeah.
But when you can connect them, then you're in alignment. And that's where I started working and focusing on being in alignment and teaching others how to be in alignment.
Yes, yes. And so let's define alignment. I like the way that you define it because I've watched a video of you defining it. How do you define it? And then maybe what are some of your personal tools for staying in alignment or maintaining it?
Yeah, great question. For me, alignment is when purpose and action meet.
Hmm.
When your purpose and your action meet. And I've developed, and I'm glad to give it to your audience for free, a free online alignment assessment tool. which allows you to go online and to document how you're spending your time every day on an average day, and then assess how aligned those activities are on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being least aligned and 10 being most aligned, on how aligned they are with your vision and mission in life. And that allows you to really get a good idea of how you're living life, because it takes an average of the scores and gives you basically your alignment score, which is basically how you're living your life. So when I first did this, when I first created this, I realized I was spending so much time on things that were not advancing me. They weren't supporting my growth at all. But I was so busy like doing that I didn't take a step back and assess and analyze and start seeing what I was actually doing. So it was a game changer for me. And I do this every quarter. I take my own test that I developed every quarter to see where I'm not aligned. And then I course correct.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very powerful tool. And I'm glad to drop the link for you to share with your listeners.
Yeah, thank you. That would be beautiful. And just to piggyback on that, observing is so powerful because it allows us to see that bird's eye view. Whether we analyze it or not, it's really just the zoomed out perspective. Uh, and analyzing it has its time and space, but it's that observation, right? Zooming out, seeing where our energy is flowing, seeing where our efforts are flowing, just noticing the imbalances because they're going to happen. I think that some of the imbalances are necessary in certain months, certain days, certain weeks. But being able to course correct, just like you said, and then realign and just having that awareness, like, okay, I spent more time filming podcasts than I did doing, self-care or, planning out my marketing or whatever it is. So that way we can just use our intention and our willpower and our decision to balance that out or to switch it out. So observation, bird's eye view, taking that assessment test. I'm so glad that you have that tool for people to access. So that's there. And then what are besides the assessment quiz, what are some of your personal practices for maintaining your alignment?
Well, I think you used a word that really resonates with me, and it's you said the word intention, and it's intentionality, right? Having intentionality about what I am doing in all areas of my life, in my mental focus, my physical focus. Like, why am I going to the gym? Like, why am I lifting weights versus running? Why am I, whatever I'm doing? The intentionality around the emotions. Like, why am I not expressing my emotions to certain people, but I am to others, right? And my spiritual practice. Like, what is my spiritual practice? Am I connecting to God? Why am I not connecting to God, source, prayer, whatever it is, right? And why am I? And what is missing? So when I sit down and I focus on the intentionality of it, I'm really able to ground in and keep my alignment aligned. So and look, we all fall out of it from time to time. And that's why I continue to take this, utilize the tool I developed, because it helps support me when I am out of it.
Yeah, so beautiful. And, I believe that no one is exempt from the ebbs and flows of life, meaning some of us will fall out of it. I think maintaining it like 1,000% of the time is just not realistic because life just has its ebbs and flows, but it's how we respond. That's why I love what you were saying earlier. It's how we respond to the situations that are playing out. And when we notice that we're out of alignment, it's like, oh, tomorrow's going to be my realignment day. Next week's going to be my realignment week. So that is so beautiful.
Yeah, and we can do it anytime we want, any day we want, every day. I mean, look, you hear these people say these quotes and everything, and but it's true. I mean, every day it is a fresh start if we want it to be. Or it can be the same monotonous day that yesterday was, and you can just keep going through life and not ever reach your potential because you're not focused on it. You're not doing the basic things that can get you alignment, that can get you to that higher level, that can connect you to that spiritual energy that you're missing, or that nutrition that you haven't committed to, or that movement that you're convincing yourself you're too tired to do, or it's too hot out to do. That's a one in Tulum. It's too hot to work out. What do you mean? The gym's air conditioned. What are you talking about?
Oh, excuses. Yeah. And since you're a leader in your communities and you do retreats and you help people with the deep transformation and you're there to help people through those excuses, right? I'm sure a lot of that comes up in at your retreats and in the communities that you lead as well. What are some common blocks, limiting beliefs that people deal with? Um, Blocks in regards to coming into alignment or stepping out of old habits, right? So that they can even have space to realign or to figure out like what that would actually mean for them. What are some of the most common blocks or fears that are current right now in your realm?
Look, Vanessa, I just don't have time.
Common one.
I don't have time to answer that question. Right? Or like, I've been doing this for like 2 months now. It's not working. 2 months, it's not working. Right? Like you have to dedicate yourself and stay commit to consistency in anything that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine if you try to start a business and 2 months later you're assessing your results?
People do it.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Or some people are okay being average. Like they don't look at anything beyond that. They're like, all right, I'm making enough money. I can pay my bills. I'm fine. I get one vacation a year. I'm fine. Is that really how you want to live? If that's how you want to live, then God bless you. Who am I to tell you not to live like that? Nobody. But I imagine deep down inside, there's something missing, right? There's a lack of spirit inside of you,
Mm-hmm.
a lack of motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And now I also think that focus is a huge, huge one because we're in the war's on. Excuse me, the world is on fire. Like that's just a fact. It's on fire. There's wars going on everywhere. But the biggest war that is happening is the war on our attention. That's the biggest war. If you're in the States or Europe or whatever, or especially the States, you're driving along, there's billboard after billboard after billboard trying to get your attention off the road, actually, and to look at a billboard. Yeah, that's safe. To look at a billboard, right? So you go and you buy a big fat hamburger because it looks good on the billboard, and that's going to really support your immune system, right? You open social media, there's ad after ad after ad after ad trying to get your attention, right? You have your family, you have your business, you have your clients, you have your friends, you have your spouse, you have your dog, you have whatever it is, all vying for your attention. So that's why I say there's a war on our attention right now. And that's where you get to manage who you allow in your sphere and who you say no to. And the more we say no to others, the more we say yes to ourselves.
Yes. That's why boundaries are so powerful.
Super powerful.
Yeah, yeah. So let's just close the loop on the consistency aspect for the person who's like, I tried it for 2 months and it didn't work. especially because you have so much experience and success as being a long-term successful entrepreneur. Um, what's some suggestions? What's the antidote to that? How long should someone really, at least have their first marker of consistency so that they're not quitting too early or trying to check out after 2 months?
I mean, for a business, I would say, you got to commit and give it a shot for your first year, and put the time and effort and energy in and see the baby steps that happen along the way before you start assessing if this is if you want to abandon it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not everything is everything. And what I mean by that is that advice isn't for everything. If you have a bad business idea and you're trying to pull it into the market, well, I mean, I can't help you, right? If you haven't done data research, if you don't know that there's a marketplace for what you're trying to put out into the world, that's separate. But if you know there's a marketplace for it, then you got to commit to yourself for a year and then assess where you are and find the areas that you need support in so that you can focus in on what you're great at. Because you can't be good at everything. Somebody, a mentor told me that a long time ago. Michael, don't try to do all this. You can't be good at everything. You can be average at some things and really good at others. Stay in your zone. Do what you're great at. And either hire out, partner with, give equity to the other pieces that can help support you and move it forward.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And so what are some other tools and perspective shifts that people can really start to hone in on when they're transitioning out of the excuses, right? When they're bringing awareness to all the excuses that they have or the desire to quit or their inconsistencies? What are some tools that you recommend?
Well, I mean, one is you gotta get out of your head. And how do you get out of your head? You get into your body. So getting out of your head and into your body is super important. So if you don't have a consistent workout routine, and if you're not spending time out in nature, that's the first thing I would say, because it will clear your mind so that you rationally can think about it. So often we're stuck in our own heads and we're thinking about, hey, I haven't been successful, but really you just had a bad week. And if you can zone out and look at the last 4 months and how far you've come, then that's a different narrative than the last week. So you can't do that if you're stuck in your head. So by going and getting into your body, by going and getting into nature, you can clear your mind. The second thing is reading is super important. Like, I'm a big proponent of reading in the morning, whatever it is that you're into. Maybe it's a business book, maybe it's a spiritual book, maybe it's a mindset book. Maybe it's chasing the high, whatever it is. It's important that you're sitting with a relaxed nervous system and reading and gaining knowledge. And then the other I would say is podcasts, listening to a business podcast, listening to a motivational podcast. The people you follow on social media determine what your brain is filled with. And if you're not on social media, even better. Mm-hmm. But a lot of us are, because it's part of our business and we just want to stay connected to friends. So limiting what's going in each of your ears is important. So I would say those are kind of like the three things that I think. And then lastly, I'll just say, I've mentioned it a couple of times, but I truly believe that like having a connection with a higher power, source, God, universe, whatever it is super important. And when you're able to pray, and when I speak about prayer, I'm speaking about depositing your intentions into the world through non-religious prayer. Prayer can be, for me, it's a form of intention setting to my business partner, who's God, and asking him to show me the miracles that are happening in my world as long as I keep my eyes open for them to show me that I'm on the right path. And it's not this begging prayer. It's not like you hear about these people on the side of their bed, like, Lord, have mercy on my soul, blah, 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 blah. No, no, no. It's not that. It's what is your intention in the world? And depositing the intention and asking God to meet you on that path. Because the work we're doing is God's work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have a prayer or an intention setting moment where, after that moment, you were like, if I ever doubted God or prayer or or miracles or manifestation, I'm not doubting it anymore. Like I have, have you ever had a moment like that? I feel like most people have, where they were kind of like, oh yeah, prayer, okay. And then it came down to the wire and they just poured in their intention. And then they were just like, yeah, after that, no more guessing, no more doubt.
Well, the answer is yes. And, I grew up in a religious background. Well, I grew up Jewish and I was pushed to go into Hebrew school, get my bar mitzvah, which I did, but I had no connection to it. And I always viewed religion as very divisive. So I just rejected it totally. So for a long period of time, I wasn't connected to God because I just grouped God in with religion when really God has nothing to do with religion. Like it's just what humans have been able to do to gather followings, to garner, followings, and then sprinkle capitalism on top of it. And then it's all a business. Religion's a business. It's not so spiritual in nature when you zoom out and you really look at what's happening. So yeah, I started praying. I was introduced to God through my men's group, Men of Means, and I started praying, and miracles started happening. I had been praying for a lot of my life. I created a lot of impact, and I created a lot of wealth, but I hadn't been able to create impact and wealth aligned. So doing one thing that created them both. My wealth was my business, which was not aligned with impact. Really, it was aligned with making money, and the impact I was doing was mostly volunteer work that I was contributing to. Volunteer in prison system, volunteer for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, volunteered for domestic abuse in Utah, a variety of different organizations I was involved in, for homeless in LA. But I was praying, like, I want this to come together so I can focus all my energy in one area. And that's when Men of Means came into my life, where we're impacting men and generating revenue from what we're teaching and allowing other men to generate revenue in this model that we created. So it was that moment when I was like, all right, God, I guess this is it. This is what you delivered me. This is it. Thank you.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful. And give me some more. I'm really curious about Men of Means now. Yeah, what else is it about?
So Men of Means is a brotherhood where we focus on 4 pillars, which are being radically honest, having radical integrity, taking radical ownership on our decisions and when we screw up, and play. I don't know why it's not radical play, but it's play. And as men, we tend to take ourselves, I'll speak for men because I'm a man. As men, we tend to take ourselves so serious in life and lose that element of play that we have as children, as we're born into this world. So that's why it's a key element to our 4 pillars. And underneath it all is, again, reconnecting to God, our connection to God. So we have an online community, which we meet every Saturday, where there's like a sermon that's given by the founder, Soleil Rad. And then we go into breakout rooms and we discuss how whatever the topic is, has impacted our lives. So it could be on doubt. I'm being a doubt detective. Where's there doubt in our lives? How can we detect it and eradicate it? Because doubt is really the devil. It will pull you down away from anything that you're focused on. Joy is another example. How can we create more joy in our life? How can we be a joy generator? We talk about that. We work on our nervous systems and how to retrain our nervous systems. And we spend a lot of time working on our emotional field and opening up and expressing our emotions as men. So we meet on Saturdays, and then all through the week, there's opportunities to meet with different activities that we have throughout the week. And it's led by other men and leaders within our group. It's $99 a month, and it is a affiliate model. So once you come in and then you bring in other men, then you get a 20% referral fee. So you bring in 5 men, it pays for yours, and then you can start generating revenue from that. And yeah, we have about 100 members now, and we've been building that probably for the last year. And now we're going to be launching coaching programs and retreats. So we're going to be launching that in the next couple weeks, actually. So I'm really excited about that. In-person retreats and coaching programs for the more financially successful man who wants to kind of dive in deeper. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have such a deep appreciation for men's work and all the leaders like yourself who who are like leading the way with men's work, because I think it's so important. And in more, I'm biased because I'm only a certain age, so I've only been here so long, but I feel like it's just more important now than ever, just because of some of the cultural things that have been happening. Or just, there's been some shame around masculinity, and there's also been, and then even men not wanting to feel their emotions because they're trying to protect um their persona or whatever it is. And so for men to meet men where they're at and to understand, how to embrace masculinity but also navigate it, and we all have masculine and feminine within us. And so it's a beautiful dance. And I just have so much deep appreciation for the men's work. And I want to ask you, for other people out there who are wanting to expand the men's work, right? And they want to play their role in it. How significant is it to you? Like, how do you see it?
I mean, it's extremely important because there's so many mixed messages out there in the world. You had the whole Me Too movement and all this stuff, and that movement in itself it just damaged a lot of men. And then most men are confused and they don't know really what women want. And just like everybody, different women want different things, different men want different things, right? There's no blanket statement for everybody, but to be in a supportive community with other men who open up emotionally gives other men the permission for them to do it also. And of course, there's men online, there's men all over that's like, don't worry about your emotions, don't, be masculine, pretend like everything is under control all the time, earn money, support everyone, go to the gym, blah, 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 blah. And that's fine if you resonate with that. I don't resonate with that. I resonate with being able to open up the emotional field so I can connect on a deeper level with somebody spiritually, emotionally, which will lead to a deeper physical connection. Obviously if it's your partner or spouse, and if it's a friend, it'll lead to a much, much deeper soul connection with that person. And you like storing these emotions inside of you, it leads to isolation, addiction. There's so much addiction going on, especially porn addiction. Like porn addiction is so out of control with men. And it's not real. It's not the reality of the world. So, it causes a lot of damage. And, there's a reason that I think it's 78% of suicides in the US are men. There's a reason. right? It's video games, it's porn, it's, gambling, it's not expressing your emotions, not feeling safe to express your emotions, mental illness. Some of these things women are affected by, but most of those things are like male dominated. Obviously other addictions like alcohol and drugs, it's kind of across both genders, but these certain areas, especially porn, it's and video games, it's really highly addictive in the male species.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know there's not one solution, um, but what do you think is a significant or powerful antidote or solution to some of this? Is it retreats like yours and community and healing in community, or is it something else?
It's community connection and growth. Community connection and growth, like a commitment to yourself that you want to change, and then getting in with community, right, that you can connect with and feel safe around to actually birth that change. And then there's all sorts of programs that you can get into, coaching programs, retreats, men's groups, variety of different things, where we're actually elevating our level of consciousness. Like that is what we're here for, right? To elevate our level of to open our eyes to what is real and what is not. Because most of it is a simulation. And I don't want to talk over people's head and everything, but most of what we live in is all a game. It's all a game. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like that to us. But most people are being manipulated into their decisions. All of them. Because we're programmed at a very young age, and then we're continued to program on social media with the people we surround ourselves with, whatever it is. So it's important to have your own time, have your own space, work within, meditate, read, do any of these things that allow you to be centered and be making non-biased decisions for yourself.
Yes. Yes. And just to add into that, community is so powerful because compassion can happen in community, like compassion in a potent, not just from one person, but from several people in one moment or in 1 hour, right? When someone's sharing or when there's some kind of exercise happening or experience that's collective. And so that compassion that happens in community can be the antidote to shame. And I think that's one of the very few, if one of the first 3 steps in someone coming out of their coping mechanisms or being public and sharing, just like coming out and being like, yeah, I have this addiction. I have this, I've been lying about that. It happened. It can happen so powerfully when we receive that compassion from community.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's like holding space is one of the greatest gifts you can give another human being. And for those who don't know what holding space is, it's just that. It's allowing somebody to express themselves at the deepest levels without giving them advice. Mm-hmm. Without giving them advice, unless they ask, of course. But so many of us want to just give advice to people. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, they're not asking for our advice. They just want somebody to listen to them. This is especially important in relationships. I've learned firsthand. She doesn't want my advice. She just wants me to listen. Yeah. And a great question to ask is, after you allow them to share, you have to retrain your nervous system to shut up. Shut up. When you want to say something, don't say it. Just hold the space, hold the tension. And then ask them, how can I support you?
Mm-hmm. So powerful. So powerful.
Such an easy statement, right? But the amount of times I've been asked that in my life have been like, before I joined the men's group, like none, ever. It was just like, no, do this, do this, do this. Well, I wasn't asking you what I should do, but thank you for telling me. Right. So that statement, like if anybody takes anything away from this podcast, take this statement. How can I support you?
Yeah.
And don't betray yourself if you can't support the way they want you to support.
Yeah.
Only support them if it aligns with you.
Yes. So powerful. That's really, really powerful. And as we start to wrap up, are there any other tips? We've talked about so much good stuff. Boundaries, because when we say no to something else that's out of alignment, we're saying yes to ourselves. We're saying yes to things that are more in alignment for us. Supporting people, asking them how we can support them when it's in alignment with us. What are some other powerful, healthy boundary concepts or tips that people can use?
I love calling people forth. So it's different than calling people out. When you call someone forth, you are calling them to their higher being, right? You're calling them to, because you love them, to show up in a different way. And you're doing it because it's true for you when you do this. And this allows you to have boundaries around how people talk to you, how people treat you. When they say they're gonna like call you at a certain time and then they don't call you, and then they make up some excuse. It doesn't matter to me what happened. Just take ownership that you made a commitment. I booked time on my calendar and you didn't make it. Just own it. Just own it so we can move forward. It's not that big of a deal. I don't need to know that your dog peed on the carpet and that you didn't have the pee remover and you had to go to the store to get the pee remover, or it would have smelled in the house too long. And while that happened, the electricity went out and you couldn't blah, 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 blah. It's all a story, It doesn't matter.
It all goes back to some of the programs of people pleasing or trying to get validation, instead of just being like, hey, lost track of time. Here I am. Thanks for waiting. And I tell people that all the time, like, you don't have to apologize so much, sorry, I was late. No. Thank you for waiting. I'm here now. Let's roll. Right. It's just like being empowered, even when things don't go exactly as planned. So I love that.
Yeah. And that's one of our pillars in Men and Means, wearing the shirt right here, is when we talk about radical ownership, we talk about own your shit. Ownership. Right? Just take ownership for it. And then we can move forward. It's so easy. It's so easy.
Yeah. And it keeps us in this, it gives us more momentum to be empowered in our next conversation, in our next situation, in our next meeting, our next day. It's like a constant build of momentum when we take ownership. And that's just a powerful way to respond to the dog peeing and not having pee removed. You know what I mean? It's just like, yep, that happened. You start to feel this empowerment. That's almost like bulletproof. So I love that. Any books that you could recommend or a quote that you want to leave us with?
I know I said it once before. I'm just going to recommend my book.
Yeah.
It's Chasing the High. It's on Amazon and it's also on Audible. And I read it. So if you are really dying to hear a New Jersey accent, you can get 4.5 hours of my book on Audible. Use your download on me. It's really it's an entrepreneur's mindset through addiction, lawsuits, and his journey to the edge. And I guess any quotes, I would just say favorite of mine is don't make emotional decisions.
Beautiful. Yeah, there's no clarity in the now when we're emotional. I mean, work through the emotion though. Be with it. Yeah.
100%. Embrace the emotion, work through the emotion, but don't react to the emotion. Yes. Respond to the emotion.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Process and then respond. Beautiful. And how can people find you? Your all your information will be in the description, but if someone just wants to hear your website or your Insta, what is it?
Yeah, my website's just www.michaelg- and that's spelled out DASH.com. And I will drop the address for the alignment assessment to you. And then you can find me on Instagram at MDASH1, the number one, MDASH1. So come grab a copy of the alignment assessment and you will love it. It will really shift your entire perspective and bring awareness, which is the most important part of any change you're ever going to make.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. It was such an honor and a pleasure having you on the Souls podcast today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Queen of Soul.
You're welcome. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.
Bye bye.